I'm Ashton Addison from BlockWest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have John Patrick Mullin, the co-founder of SOMA.finance and MANTRA DAO. John, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for taking the time to come on.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to the discussion.
Definitely. I've been following Mantra for quite a while. It's a beautiful ecosystem, and I know that you're continuing to expand with SOMAfinance, which is also incredible, but I don't know enough about it yet. So I would love to kick off the discussion, just a high-level overview for myself and for the viewers on what is SOMAfinance and Mantra DAO as well in the ecosystem, and then we can sort of break down and dive into the details after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thanks for having me on. Really, we're looking forward to the chat today. So it's probably important to start with Mantra DAO and then kind of how that flows into Soma. So Mantra DAO is a project that I started with a couple of partners about a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, which is essentially a DeFi focused DAO. We've created a bunch of different DeFi products, including a staking platform, a yield farming platform, money market, lending, Launchpad. We have like this little lottery pool called the Mantra Pool. We are active on a bunch of different chains. So we're live on ETH, BSC, Polygon, soon to launch on Solana, Terra, another layer one that's TBD, I can't say yet, Polkadot Parachain. And we're actually building our own chain, which is going to be a Cosmos Tendermint based layer one. We run validator nodes for a bunch of different proof of stake chains. We probably support, I think, 25 to 30 different networks. So we're really kind of plugged into the DeFi, Web3, and kind of DAO space, I guess. So that's Mantra DAO. But basically, kind of the story of how Soma came to be. Around the time that we created our Launchpad, which is called Zenit, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. You participated in some of the launches. When we launched this product back in early 2021, even before we launched it, we're like, this is going to be a highly commoditized product within the space. Everyone's going to have one. It's not a very complex product to build. Everyone's going to, try to have it. And the only kind of unique selling point for most of these things is maybe a unique model that's going to get replicated pretty quickly because you can just fork or change the onboarding structure. Or in our case, we're like, okay, well, we have this partner, our joint venture partner in Soma, Tritonian Capital, which is a US broker dealer, and they have a very special license that allows us to do compliant issuances of tokens. So we're like, okay, instead of trying to go this way of like attracting all these amazing projects and kind of differentiating ourselves that way, let's differentiate ourselves with the fact that we have a completely defensible moat around this license. So that was pretty much where we came to initially start talking about the idea of Soma. And originally the idea was to actually just have it as an extension, pure direct extension of Mantra DAO. But then we decided it actually was better to be under its own brand, its own kind of moniker, its own, everything. And we kept spitballing a little bit in thinking of new ideas. And we're like, okay, well, not only can we do a compliant and regulated Launchpad, but really we can create all these DeFi primitives that, everyone's used to, but in a, again, a KYC and AML compliant structure, as well as utilizing this brokerage license to add other different asset classes, to these type of products. Obviously, securities, commodities, ETFs, et cetera, et cetera. So in a nutshell, Soma is really just a particularly US, but globally compliant DeFi platform that has a DeFi native user experience. But we do require KYC and AML on the way in because basically it creates this kind of walled garden around the platform that you can, trade on an AMM or participate in a Launchpad or, lend and borrow your assets all in a permissionless fashion. But we know who you are because we know based on your wallet and your KYC information, who you are and what, kind of what you're doing. This allows us to maintain compliance and also keep out the bad actors.
Definitely. Thank you for all that explanation. And that does shed some light on the differences there. And yeah, with Soma and with regulation, just continuing to grow as more institutions and regulators get involved, there's definitely a need for that, and that makes sense why Soma has been created. And when I first think of a Launchpad and then like regulated, I think security token offerings, but I feel like it also is just like any regular token that wants to go through the proper compliance to be available to the US. But I also consider like NFTs potentially or other DeFi solutions. So is it going to be sort of and you mentioned there are ETFs and commodities and things that I don't really associate normally with crypto, but can be crypto based as well. Are you focused on all of these different types of assets for Soma?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we're not going to launch everything on day one. We'll roll it out in time and focus on certain things in due course. But really, the idea is to be able to support a multi-asset platform, both on the issuance side as well as the kind of the trading in the DEX product. We think they go hand in hand. One thing that I continuously say is I hate the term STO, and I'm really trying to move Soma away from it. Just because it has a little bit of a bad connotation from, the 2018, 2019 days where it was like the next big thing and it never really came to be. Yeah. Really what I'm trying to push forward with Soma is we're not just doing security tokens, we're just literally doing compliant tokens, right? Mm-hmm. And the difference between the tokens that we're creating now and kind of back then was twofold in my opinion. One, when people were doing STOs back in the day, they're really focused on like tokenizing real estate or some big financial product or, some equity in a company, right? The value add wasn't really that clear or significant. And realistically, a lot of the participants were only institutional investors. There was no ability to access retail. And to be completely honest, does, Joe Schmo off the street really care about, owning a piece of a building? It's not as like sentimental to them. Yes, it might be interesting, right? But is it like, supporting your favorite crypto coin? Probably not. Right. So what we're trying to do is actually build a retail friendly asset class that can support, anything from games, NFTs, metaverse, sports. So we're talking to a lot of athletes, sports leagues, etc. that again, retail can get behind. We'll be issuing them as securities in the United States, but effectively they're just tokens. Right. So we're just doing the security is just on the back end. It's just compliance work. It doesn't actually change much in terms of the smart contract. You actually will be issuing tokens in two tranches, so like an onshore U.S. tranche and an offshore tranche, but the token smart contract is the same, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the key. So we think this is a kind of a game changer because U.S. retail particularly has really been shut out from any type of primary issuance or primary launch, and then they can't get into ICOs, right? And everyone tries to stay away from Americans. I'm American. I believe you're American, if I'm not mistaken. We can't even participate in these types of things most of the time. So we think that this will be a bit of a game changer because we'll be able to directly sell to U.S. retail investors in token form.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Great points, John. And yeah, you're right about 2018. I was going to security token conferences back then, and it was supposed to be the next trend. And look at us now, years and years later. You're right. Like the main cryptocurrencies that could be classified as securities, if they go through the proper compliance, that checks a lot of green boxes, doesn't necessarily have to be equity in the company. It can just be a token.
Yes.
So I really do like the path that you're taking with SOMAfinance in that regard. And to talk a little bit more about the regulation and not so much on the security tokens, but more on DeFi, which has been the trend over the last few years, continues to explode with the value locked as more institutions come in and regulators, especially with this battle between centralized exchanges, having that regulation and the KYC, and then DeFi being the Wild West. They're trying to regulate DeFi and create regulated DeFi. And I'm curious on your insights into regulated DeFi or just having DeFi that where SOMA is attached to it and there's the proper compliance.
Sure. I mean, I know a lot of people think that they're completely kind of a polar opposites where DeFi should not be regulated or they just don't go hand in hand. And I completely understand that there needs to be that wild west element to a degree to push innovation and things. Obviously, you don't want to see the rug pulls and the scams and these type of things. And it is an unfortunate reality of the industry that we work in, and many industries, to be honest. It's not just only crypto. But kind of the way that we're trying to go about Soma is again creating a experience that is similar to as if you're participating just on Uniswap or Compound or Aave or even MANTRA DAO, right? But there is a level of kind of backing that is supported by licensing and AML and KYC processes and compliance and things of this nature that actually will help reduce those rug pulls and those scams and those things. Yes, there is a bit more of a centralized nature to some of that business, but realistically, if you want to get in the listed companies, the big institutions, the regulated fund managers, the asset managers, etc., they are just not. They're literally not able to go and purchase tokens on Uniswap because there's significant. I mean, forget the securities problems, which is a significant one, but they're more worried about the AML and KYC concerns because they don't know who the counterparty is on that trade,
sure.
right? Like they don't know if it's myself or you who's going to be part of that liquidity pool, or if it's a guy in North Korea, or some separatists in Russia, which is obviously the hot topic of the day, or some terrorist organization or narco trafficker. They don't know, right? In our situation, they do, because again, we have that walled garden I mentioned. But the user experience is the same, and you can have the kind of enhanced functionalities that inherently blockchain and DeFi can bring you in terms of enhanced yield and a bunch of different kind of permissionless opportunities, which are very, very, very cool. But you're doing it in a way that is actually accessible by a listed company or the like. So we've actually seen a significant interest in a lot of these kind of big traditional kind of trading firms or investors. Because again, they've just been kind of shut out of that on-chain DeFi experience, and SOMAfinance is aiming to bring them that.
Definitely amazing, great points. And you talked a lot there about funding and all of these big companies and how they have to follow those procedures. And I was looking at these large companies, and one of the largest companies that I'm seeing in the NFT space and DeFi is Animoca Brands, and I saw that they recently led part of the funding round for SOMAfinance, which is great to capitalize the company. Maybe you can talk about that a little bit and what that capital is going to be for as you continue to grow in the near future here.
Absolutely. We're really excited to be working very closely with Animoca. Obviously, I'm normally based in Hong Kong. I'm currently in New York, but SOMA is basically a Hong Kong and New York team. And Animoca is from Hong Kong, so we're really happy to kind of have our neighbor, heavily supporting us. And when we started getting in touch with them about the SOMAfinance fundraise, initially you're kind of like, traditional DeFi regulation. Does that really kind of play with NFTs, metaverse, gaming, which is obviously the wheelhouse of Animoca? And realistically, when we went out initially, that wasn't like our aim, right? It wasn't necessarily our sector of focus. But we realized very quickly, through the pain points that Animoca was facing, that many of their portfolio companies, particularly which are gaming companies, metaverse, NFTs, et cetera, were having significant issues, again, accessing the US market. Play to earn games, in-game assets are highly, highly likely to be deemed as securities in the United States. So effectively what they were doing is they're just like, meh, if you're from America, cannot participate. That's a big problem with there's 300 plus million people in the United States just alone, right? That's it. It's one of the biggest crypto markets out there. And one of the biggest gaming markets out there. So they were very, very, very keen to participate and work with us because, they have tons and tons of portfolio companies that need the support to be able to access this market. Another one that was participating in the seed round is Griffin Gaming Partners, which is the largest gaming VC in the United States. They're the backers of Forte and some of these other, massive gaming companies. They are also active participants. So we were really lucky that we got two gaming and NFT giants participating and supporting us from day one. And we have a big pipeline of companies that are going to come through the issuance platform, just like I mentioned. So, we have some really, really exciting stuff coming on just the launchpad alone. In terms of kind of like where the fundraising is going towards, obviously it's building out the team. The platform has fortunately been able to reutilize a lot of the existing technology and tech stack that Mantra's already built. Obviously, we had to make some adjustments in terms of just adding additional compliance layers and some small tweaks here and there to make sure it's FINRA and SEC compliant. But really, a lot of it's going to build out the team, and then it's a retail-focused platform to begin with. So we're going to heavily market it. So we have a couple cool initiatives that we're going to be launching. The first one we launched the DEX is a lock drop. So we're going to be basically a pre-launch liquidity incentivization program where people can earn SOMA by locking liquidity. So that's one cool thing on the way.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. And I feel like there's a lot that still needs to be worked on. Can you talk a little bit about the near future in terms of the platform, and is there any tentative schedule on releasing and getting these people involved in this pre-launch as you mentioned?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already begun a whitelisting procedure just for the SOMA token public sale. That I think has already reached, I think we already have over 250,000 signups, which has been pretty crazy. A lot. I mean, we'll see how many of those can pass KYC, but still a lot of people to begin with. I think we were mentioning a little bit beforehand, like right now, the actual tech for the launchpad, the licensing is already ready to go. So it's really just like actually getting some of the deals to come through the pipeline. So I would expect that. I mean, we're sitting here at the end of February right now. I would expect that as soon as mid to late March, as we're going to have a couple deals that are going to come through, that you'll see a couple games and maybe some sports related activities or tokens come through the platform. So that's on the way. We'll start doing whitelisting procedures for those as well. So be on the lookout. After that, we're going to be doing a full kind of launch of the AMM DEX trading platform, which will comprise of both cryptos as well as public equities. So basically how it works is that there's going to be two ways that people can mint kind of equity tokens. One is just purely from the platform itself. So you can send in ETH or Bitcoin or cash even, or a number of different assets, and then you just mint the tokens. And as part of the lock drop, you'll actually be getting discounted equities because we're going to be subsidizing essentially your purchase. And then the other way is actually, and this might not be from day one, but eventually you'll be able to move your existing equity portfolio from Robinhood or Interactive Brokers or Charles Schwab or E-Trade or whatever. And we can do another cool campaign where we'll cover your transfer costs, right?
Wow.
The cool thing with that product that is different from other synthetic equity products out there is like you actually retain ownership of the asset. So we hold one-to-one custody for each Tesla token. So if we have a SOMA Tesla token, we hold one share of Tesla in custody on the traditional custodial broker dealer on your behalf.
Wow.
And that means you can maintain the dividends, you get the voting rights, you get all that good stuff, but then you can have the 24/7 trading, you can yield farm with it, you can lend and borrow against it, you can do all these cool DeFi things.
Wow.
And that's coming incredible. In the next 2-3 months. Wow.
Amazing, John. I'm looking forward to seeing that. That really does sound incredible, and really easy way for people involved in traditional finance to just move over into DeFi and experience all those benefits that you just mentioned there about all the time, having the custody, not being able to do anything when the market closes on the regular market, and crypto is 24/7, and the world is 24/7 now. So that's the way that it should be. So I'm really excited for that. Thank you for sharing all those details. For the viewers that are looking to follow along with these updates as they happen live, what is the best way for them to get involved in the communities and to follow the updates?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the two best ways are hop in our Telegram group and follow us on Twitter. Those are definitely the easiest for the time being. If anyone wants to reach out to me, I'm pretty active on Telegram as well. So, or Twitter for that matter. So by all means, shoot me a message, drop in my DMs, do my best to answer.
Sounds great. I'll leave all those links in the description box below as well for the viewers. Thank you so much, John, for coming on to talk about SOMA and MANTRA DAO, to explain it all. I appreciate that. All the best on these updates that you mentioned. I will be following along, and let's follow up in the near future.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on.